What's going on, everybody? All right, it's Wednesday. Crazy week. Again, I told you, hopefully you got a chance yesterday to watch the episode of myself and Joe Perot. You know Joe from Sports Cards Live. Awesome. He's a regular on the awesome live stream from Jeremy Lee on Saturday nights. Joe and I have become pretty good friends, and I really enjoyed hearing what his take was on his current status and the of the hobby of collecting, of all this news that's been going on. And I think that it was important for me to not just share, well, this is what Greg thinks, and so since I think this certain way and I'm feeling a certain way, then everybody must feel that way. That is not how I operate. I thought it was important to hear from another longtime collector, hear what he felt things are like right now, some of his frustrations. And he really has some frustrations with grading, with valuation, with potentially auction houses. And that was the discussion yesterday. So now, the next 2 days, we're going to talk to some people in the industry to kind of hear where they're at and what sorts of changes they might be making, or what sorts of things are in their systems to help us through the recovery process of some of the trauma that some of us have been going through. But today is Q&A day. And remember, if you have a question for an upcoming episode, simply ask it down below in the comments. Now, I'm just going to say it. Next week, I think I might be taking my first week off of Wednesday Q&A for almost 3 years. Well over 2.5 years. Closer to 3 years than 2.5 years. Every single Wednesday. But that doesn't mean I won't have an episode. It just won't be Q&A. Finally, I will be posting this insane pre-war collection, most of which of the cards are still ungraded. Some of the most expensive cards, Ruth cards ungraded, Ty Cobb cards ungraded, Shoeless Joe Jackson card ungraded, and I would say at least 50 other Hall of Famers, at least in ungraded condition. That episode is either going to post on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And just as a little tip also, a lot of these cards are going to be for sale. You'll have to tune in to see how you can get a piece of some of these cards. But that's going to be Wednesday. So I think next Wednesday, I'm just going to enjoy Thanksgiving with my family and not do a Q&A episode next week. But if you have a question, still ask it. It'll just show up the following Wednesday. All right. Lots of great questions. I'm sharing my thoughts. Again, just one guy's opinion about pretty much anything you're interested in regarding the hobby. First question right here. This week's first question says, "Hi Greg, fellow teacher here. Thanks for taking my question. I'm an 80s kid who still enjoys junk wax. My question for you is, if you had to pick 3 cards that haven't really caught fire from that era, i.e. the way the 89 Griffey Upper Deck or the Billy Ripken Error card has, what 3 would you choose and have a chance of shooting up in value? Thanks again, Joe." Okay, this is a good question. Now, I have to give my disclaimer. This is not an investment channel. I do not have investment liability insurance. So this is for entertainment purposes only. I will give you some things that I find to be a little bit intriguing that aren't completely unaffordable yet and are somewhat even available. When I think of, and I'm assuming again that you're asking about cards from that kind of junk wax era, which a lot of people call it the high population era. We'll say the early to mid 80s to the mid 90s. So 82-ish to 97-ish is the era that I think that you're asking about. So what are some cards that I think have potential, but haven't yet really gone bonkers? Some of the cards that are very popular from that era are Cal Ripken rookie cards. I guess that would be a little bit before. The Cal Ripken rookie card would be a little bit before. Let's just say from 1980 to 2000. The Cal Ripken rookie card, very popular. Tony Gwynn cards, Don Mattingly cards, Ken Griffey Jr. cards. Those guys are very popular, were the guys for us in our 40s and early 50s growing up. And a lot of us want those cards, and one of the reasons we want those cards is for nostalgia's sake, but they're very, very high in population. So the question that you're asking is interesting because when you say, what has a chance of going way up, the only card that is really high population, but has also really gone up, is that Ken Griffey Jr. card. And other cards haven't done that have that kind of population. In order for a card to really increase in value, it has to have either a low supply or a very high demand. And the Ken Griffey Jr. card, I think there's a lot of nostalgia of people that are in their 40s and 50s saying, that was the card as a kid, and I want the card. So what's the next one? Well, hold on. Let me look at my crystal ball. Oh no, that's a Magic 8 ball. I don't know, you don't know, none of us know, but I want to use those parameters that I was just talking about, those tools that I was just talking about to look at some possibilities. So if it's really, really high in population, it would have to have an insane demand. I don't really see that happening outside of a card like the 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. because you could make the argument that might be the most iconic card in the history of the hobby. It's definitely in the top 5. I think it's for sure in the top 3, and you can make the argument that it's number 1. There's not another card that is the most iconic card in the history of the hobby, let alone in that period of time. So there won't be a card that can reach that kind of demand and do this sort of thing. So then you have to look at the supply piece. What is something that I could see some people having some demand in, but right now there's not a ton of demand in it, but there could be future demand in it, and the supply is lower than something like the Ken Griffey Jr. or the, I don't know, Jose Canseco rookie card or whatever. I would lean towards, and I did a video on this literally 3 years ago, minor league cards. Some of the minor league cards, like Ken Griffey Jr. has a couple of minor league cards. And the population of those cards is so much less than the 89 Upper Deck. I think that those minor league cards of Ken Griffey Jr. seem to be kind of overlooked. They're very affordable still. I think that has potential. I think Don Mattingly has a couple of minor league cards that are still very affordable. Ricky Henderson's minor league card is really, really low population compared to his rookie card. And it's not cheap, but it's not crazy. Cal Ripken minor league cards. But I think there's this sort of, so I'm throwing a bunch of darts. And that's all I feel like I'm doing right now is I'm just throwing darts because none of us know. But I think some of the minor league cards have a lot of potential. So let me go with this. When you look at what cards take off, like why has the Ken Griffey Jr. taken off over the last 2, 3, 4 years? Even you could go back 5, 6, 7 years. Part of the reason is the jump in the hobby, but part of the reason is people in my generation have started to get to the point where they are starting to make a little bit more money. I mean, that must be nice. You guys will have to tell me all about it down below, what that would feel like. But they're starting to make more money. Kids are starting to get older. Maybe they're out of daycare. Maybe they're even out of the house at this point. There's more time to get back into the hobby. So what tends to happen is when we get between about 45 and 55, we start to have time and we start to have more money. And because we have a little bit more time and money, then we get back into our hobbies. So a lot of the people from my childhood who grew up wanting that Ken Griffey Jr. card, those people are at that point. And so that card has jumped. So what I would say is go, what's the iconic player? What's the iconic card? What's the iconic interest in the hobby for the next 5 or 10 years? So the people that right now are 35 to early 40s, we'll say 35 to even 45, who did they grow up being enamored by? Because Ken Griffey Jr. is like the guy in baseball for people from 45 to 55. So who was the guy in baseball from that are now 35 to 45? So now we're talking, instead of the late 80s, early 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s. Now, I know the Red Sox fans aren't going to like this, but the guy that was on TV, the guy that was winning, the guy that was getting championships, the guy that was getting all the interviews and attention is Derek Jeter. And I think that Derek Jeter is the guy of that kind of group that's a little bit younger than me. And those 35-year-olds, who would have been 10 when Derek Jeter was winning championships after championships, those guys are 35. And they're early in their kid situation. They're still fairly early in their career. But over the next 10 years, they'll have more money. They'll have more time. And I think that some of those sorts of guys, like Derek Jeter, and some of the rarer Derek Jeter cards, some of the rarer Derek Jeter inserts, maybe even some of Derek Jeter's his minor league cards. Sorry, I'm getting old. See all that white hair? See that white hair? See that white hair? It's proof. But I think Jeter is kind of the guy for that next group that's going to be coming up. Now, he has an iconic card, the SP card, but I think that card might have a little bit of a boost in it, but that card went so nuts during COVID. I think rare Derek Jeter minor league cards, insert cards, early pack-pulled autograph cards, I could see having some legs. But don't go out and invest a bunch of money in them, because I literally am just throwing darts. Okay, I am at the carnival. I bought 5 darts for, what would it be now, $10. And I'm finding the area, the cluster where there are the most balloons, so I can just easily hit one. I'm not picking the area where there's a balloon here and a balloon here and a balloon here. I'm finding that one patch on the wall still at the carnival where there's lots of balloons, so I could hopefully hit something so I can win myself a 50-cent little teddy bear with my $10 investment.
This question says, question for you, good sir. If sports didn't exist, do you think you would still be a collector? Personally, I could see myself getting into stamps or coins, but wondered how you felt. Thanks.
I have always been kind of a tactile person. I remember as a kid going hiking, going to lakes and rivers and searching for rocks and coming home with a pocket full of rocks that I would put on my shelving unit and would sit there for years and years and years because those were the special rocks that I brought home from a hike or something. Going to the ocean, I would hunt for shells and I would hunt for sand dollars and things like that, and those would go up on the shelf too. I've always been a person who was intrigued by collecting things that caught my eye, things that looked unique and special. And it's not a surprise to you. I mean, you guys know that I collect non-sport cards as well. Like in last month, I bought an autographed Goonies card. I mean, who does that? Well, I did. I bought an autographed Back to the Future card a few months ago. So those aren't sports related. My pirate set, not sport related. I'm starting to work on a couple of other sets of non-sport cards that aren't sport related. So I absolutely would still be a collector. So what do I collect besides those non-sport cards? And besides those things that I've mentioned to you all many times? Well, I have mentioned a couple of times that I have gotten into collecting video games. I mean, we all remember RBI Baseball. I think I've shown this one before. I haven't stopped collecting video games. I just don't talk about it a lot because the channel is about cards. So I don't know which of these I've shown and which I haven't. But here's the first year of Madden football. John Madden football. By the way, alumni of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, like myself and Ozzie Smith. So this is for the Sega Genesis Madden football. I've got Mario Kart. Gotta have a Mario Kart. And the first Mario Kart was on Super Nintendo. Gotta have the first edition of Mario Kart. I had an Atari growing up, so I have to have a Donkey Kong for Atari. One of the big games for Atari as a kid was Asteroids. Got to have myself an Asteroids. I still need a Pitfall. I don't have a Pitfall yet. I like collecting. These aren't just the boxes. Inside is the game, the instructions. So they call these video games complete in box, CIB, that I like to collect. These are just a few of them. I have a few that I'm actually watching closely right now on a couple of auctions that are ending soon. So I like collecting video games. I also I started over the last, 6 months collecting old VHS movies. If you were to list every movie of all time, what movie have I seen the most? Coming to America. Coming to America, I've seen more than any movie of all time. The only movie that would be a close second would be National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. That movie, my goodness, I've seen that. That might be as much as Coming to America. I got Tommy Boy. So I got the VHSs of these Tommy Boy, right? That's a classic. Top Gun. Got to have some Top Gun. Didn't ever watch the new one. I don't know. This was cool back in the day. And then the scariest movie of all time in the history of movies. Now I know my buddy Mike, Junk Wax Hero, loves horror movies. Well, the scariest horror movie in the history of horror movies is E.T. Nothing gave me nightmares. Nothing, no movie in the history of movies caused me more mental health issues than E.T. So, yeah, I would collect stuff. I do collect stuff besides cards. I just don't talk about it that much. But yeah, I'm kind of a degenerate collector and very proud of it.
This one says, when buying online, how do you go about comparing cards' color quality? It's not mentioned much like centering, but it can really vary in vintage and matters a lot to me. It makes it even harder, though, when the newly graded PSA cards have a better image quality on the cert site than the older ones, and SGC cert site pictures have different image quality. Plus, you never know if an older graded card has gotten something like too much sun. The last thing I want is a card with faded colors, and going to be a big card show isn't feasible to me. Thanks. Keep up the great work.
All right. This is a really, really good question. A lot of us care about color. And when you're not physically looking at a card, you don't know if you have all of the information. And so when you're looking at a card online, was the color enhanced? Did they add saturation to the color to make it look brighter and deeper colors? We don't really know because we aren't there, and we don't know if anything was adjusted. And I don't really know if there's a perfect answer to this. I would say the following. First, I've mentioned many times, and you talk about it a little bit here. Look at the cert. Look on the cert, up the card. Look the card up on PSA. Look it up on SGC, because for the most part, there's a consistency to their scanning. Unfortunately, PSA's seems to be a little bit too bright at times. I think SGC actually, at least historically, did a little bit of a better job with the scans. But what you can do by looking at those scans is it gives you a consistent picture instead of a potentially enhanced picture like the seller might be doing with the image that they list. If it's a auction house, auction houses have the card in hand. Ideally, the auction house would be taking pretty high quality pictures, and you can get a bit of a consistency by looking at the other auction house images. That would be an option. None of those are going to be perfect, though, because like you said, what if the image was taken 5 years ago of this card by PSA? I look up the cert, it's a 5-year-old image, and since then it's been sitting on somebody's windowsill just eating sun and fading it away. That's the reason that pictures are so important on these listings, and that's the reason why it's kind of sketch, because the pictures could be manipulated. So I think my response to you would be is if you're uncomfortable and you don't trust the images, they're not high quality images, and there's not a recent image on PSA or SGC, and so on and so on and so on, I would say ask the seller, if it's on eBay, for example, for additional pictures. Email the seller, you can contact the seller through eBay and ask them specifically, can I get more pictures of this? Because I'm not confident in the color. The color is really important to me. And if it looks like the red or the blue, and that's I'll say it right now, that's one of the things that I think PSA is better about, because in PSA's flip, there is blue and red. You can get a better idea if the color saturation has been changed. If it's really, really deep red, a deeper red on the flip than you see on a normal PSA flip, then you know that has been messed with. So the blue and the red on the flip from the pictures helps us. That's one of the negatives of the current SGC flip, the black and the white, because we don't know the color. We don't have a basis for the color because it's just black and white. So if they add color saturation and make the colors more vibrant of the card, we can't tell that was done because the flip is black and white. That is definitely a limitation. That was definitely, in my opinion, a little bit of an oversight on SGC's part. What would have been ideal is if there was like a color spectrum, like a little color spectrum on the flip, but that's not going to happen. So I would say ask for additional pictures from the seller. If it's an auction house, you can email the auction house and you can ask them specifics about the card. Hey, I'm interested in lot number 112. Can you tell me, is the color weak at all? Is the color stronger than normal? They should be able to give you additional information. it looks like there's a little wrinkle up there in the top right-hand corner. Is that a wrinkle? They will get back to you with information about that specific lot number, and that could be helpful for you for sure. If you still don't trust the seller, so say it's an eBay seller, it's a big card, you're talking about spending a lot of money, and you ask for additional pictures, maybe ask for additional pictures with some additional item in the picture that will help you know if the color saturation changed. For example, hey, could you do me a favor? Take another picture of the card, and in the picture, will you put a penny in the picture for me? Because we know the color that a penny is supposed to be. Now, a penny is probably not a good choice, because if they choose an old penny, it's dulled, which is different than a brighter penny, but something where we know the color of that item, like a wood pencil. Hey, when you take the picture, could you put another item in there like a wood pencil or an eraser or something where it would allow you to say, I know the color that that item is supposed to be, and if that color in that eraser is bordering on red because there's so much color saturation, I know they've messed with it and adjusted it. But when it really boils down to it, here's my advice. If you're not confident in the card and you don't have what you feel is enough information with the pictures that are presented, then don't buy it. Don't buy it. You don't marry the gal that you think is probably the right one. You marry the gal that you know is the right one. And when you're buying a card and you're outlaying a huge amount of money for a big card, you don't go, well, I think that the color is good. I think that the corners are good enough for me. For me, I would rather be safe than sorry. So whether it's who you're dating, potentially thinking about proposing, or it's a card that you're thinking about putting $500 into, I make sure that I am certain that it's the right card. Now, will we all have a surprise or two in our life? Absolutely. But personally, I tend to go on the conservative route, and I tend to be a little bit safer than sorry. And if I'm not certain that the color is legit, then I'm probably going to pass.
This next one says, I believe the evolution of grading will eventually make the card grades assigned today irrelevant. Think about how technology has continued to improve. I believe most companies are now measuring centering with AI tools, and if they aren't, they should be. I think in the relatively near future, a card, whether slabbed or raw, can easily be scanned where centering, edges, and corners will be evaluated with more precise measure than they are used today. Other factors in how they are evaluated will also improve, like measuring registration, the quality of color in the card, and possibly technology to assess if a card has been materially altered. Soaked. At a molecular level, I am sure soaking changes the cardboard in a way that could be detected if that is desired. If I am correct, this will make PSA 10s irrelevant. If you have 100 PSA 10s, PSA 9s, or any other grading company assessments of the same card, the ability to differentiate their quality will exponentially improve. This will put a premium on the highest quality versions, as there will always be people with tons of money who want the best version. This will change the way everybody thinks about quality. You will be able to weigh what is important to you and look for the cards that meet your standards, not an arbitrary grading company. Just like going to Starbucks, where no one generally gets the same drink the same way. Question: what do you think about my grading evolution theory?
I agree. I agree. I think every passing day, the grade on the slab matters less than it did the previous day for a variety of reasons. One of which is, as you mentioned, the technology advancements allow the grading companies, whether it be PSA or SGC or Beckett or blah, 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 whoever comes out next, they're able to see things now that before they didn't see. And by increasing that technology, there is no question that the standards have gotten harder. And in addition to that, I think that it, at this point, is fairly universally accepted that over the last year or two, especially, something happened at PSA where the grading got tougher. And now those cards with a 9th serial number instead of 8 are absolutely, I believe, looked at differently. Look at eBay listings. It'll say, new cert, freshly graded. Why would they say that if that didn't influence the sale? Now, I've said this 1,000 times. I will say it at least 1,000 more. That doesn't mean every card that was graded 10 years ago, the grade doesn't hold up. That's not what that means. What that means is it might hold up, but it might not. But a card that gets a 9 from PSA now, I mean, let's just think about this for a second. You've got a Pete Rose rookie card, and you submit it to PSA, and it comes back a 9 today. And the serial number is a 9-digit serial number. It's a brand new slab, brand new, freshly graded card. I mean, that card's, imagine how nice that card is going to be. Do you just imagine it being like borderline flawless, right? Now, we've all seen cards that are 9s, and we've even seen some cards that are 10s that kind of look a little bit not flawless. But if you got a card back today from PSA, especially a vintage card, and it came back a 9, just, you got to be, you'd be able to, cut steaks with those corners and edges, right? We all agree at this point they're grading so tough that it's different than it used to be. So let's fast forward 10 years. Will it be tougher? 100%. Will there be more technologies? 100%. Will there be more tools at our disposal? 100%. Will we look back on slabs that are being graded right now and look at those differently than the cards that are being graded then? Absolutely. Let's face it. This whole concept of grading a card and encapsulating it is from the early 1990s. I think it would be naive to think that there's not going to be continued advancements. I mean, remember payphones? Remember those? When was the last time you saw a payphone? When did you last see a payphone? Why would anybody need a payphone? I legitimately never see those. Now, maybe California's different, maybe Sacramento's different, but I never see payphones because everybody has a phone. So because of the technological advancements, the things of the past are extinct. I mean, you want to buy a VHS? This thing, not very expensive. In fact, this exact one, I got in a estate sale this weekend. I went up and I said, how much do you want for the ET VHS? And they said, you could just have it. At one point, this was probably like a $12 or $15 item. What am I talking about? No clue. Here's what I'll say. I think that there will continue to be advancements, and every time there's an advancement, it makes the thing of the past less valuable. Buggies, Model Ts are not quite like the latest Porsche Cayenne that's come out, right? Things have advanced, and they will continue to be advanced. And whenever they're advanced, the things from the past will be less and less appreciated and less desired. So yes, I 100% agree.
Your thoughts on buying cards of all-time greats because they might die soon?
I understand the question, and I hear what you're suggesting. Um, Sandy Koufax, right? An all-time great. Doesn't do a lot of autograph signing anymore. Sandy Koufax isn't young. His rookie year was 1955. And he was very young then, but Sandy Koufax is, he's over 90 years old, I think, right? Isn't he like 91 or something? So Sandy Koufax is likely won't be with us in, let's be positive, 15 years. Right? It's safe to say that he won't be with us in 15 years. So if he won't be with us in 15 years, that means he's going to not be with us. So sometime between now and 15 years from now, unfortunately, we'll get some really difficult, unfortunate news that we've lost Sandy Koufax. Now, I'm assuming what you're saying is that if you buy cards of old players who are on the verge of dying, their cards will go up in value. And so shouldn't you go buy up all the cards of all the guys that are really old? I hear what you're saying. And I've talked about this topic before. I've done videos specifically on this topic, and I looked at Jim Brown. I was at a card show, literally at a card show, when the news broke that Jim Brown had passed away. And I remember walking up to a dealer, and he said, "Did you hear about Jim Brown?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, I pulled all the cards." I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I mean, his cards are going to go up now. And so I don't want to have the cards out and sell them for the price that I had them out at." What happens when somebody passes away with their cards is there is a short-term spike in them being talked about. There will be videos and ESPN clips and articles, and people will go, "Oh man, I really liked Jim Brown. I really liked Willie Mays. I really liked Orlando Cepeda. I really liked, Bill Walton, Jerry West." I'm just naming people who have passed away in the last 2 or 3 years. And so because of that influx, it reminds us of our admiration for some of these people, and then people will go buy their cards. But then those articles go away, and those clips go away, and things kind of go back to normal. I've literally looked at charts of players right before they passed away, right when it came out that they passed away, and then a month later. Ricky Henderson was the latest. Ricky Henderson cards literally doubled in an hour. I was sitting in a Habit hamburger place, and the news broke, and I looked, and I was just watching these cards on eBay of Ricky Henderson just selling like hotcakes, and the price was just literally doubled. And now they're pretty close to what they were before. So, number one, the spike in demand and the spike of reminding us of a retired athlete's greatness is a temporary thing. Unfortunately, it's a temporary thing, and so it's not a long-term buy situation. But quite frankly, I buy cards of players that I like. That's the way I operate. I buy cards that I like the looks of players that I like to collect, from sets that I like and projects that I'm working on. I'm not looking at a card of trying to time something where I get it right before the spike so then I can sell it. That's just not me. Now, I know there's a lot of people that's part of the fun, is the speculation and trying to buy things low and then sell them high. I understand that, and that's fine, but I'm the wrong guy to ask about that, because that's just not the way that I participate in the hobby. But I can tell you, from looking over it from lots and lots of athletes. I did a video about the Ricky Henderson one. I did a video about Willie Mays. I did a video about Jim Brown. And in fact, with Willie Mays, his cards actually went down right after his death. And I think that's because the market got flooded with his cards. I think people knew he was getting up in age and bought his cards with this expectation. And then what happened is, as soon as he did pass away, they all put them up for sale at the same time. And the supply went up faster than the demand. And the prices actually dropped. What I would say is this: participate in the hobby by buying the cards that you like, of the players that you like, from the sets that you like, in an era that you like, in the holders or not the holders that you like. Make sure that what you're buying are the things that you enjoy and bring you joy. And if you want to utilize the hobby as a way to speculate, hey, if that brings you joy, knock yourself out. I have no shade from me if that's what somebody else does. That's just not how I do it. So trying to give advice or suggestions about that, I'm probably the wrong guy. But I will tell you, based on looking over that from several athletes over the last 3.5 years since I started my channel, the price bump is very, very temporary. With that said, if you have a question for an upcoming episode, ask it down below in the comments. Remember, I don't think we're going to have a Q&A next week, but we're going to have a really special episode, and I hope that you check it out. My mind is still blown, and it was about 3 weeks ago that I got to see these cards. So next week, look for that. There will be an episode, but it won't be a Q&A for the first time in a really, really long time.